the last talk of today, which is going to be given by Dr. Subramanian. And now we are kind of switching gears to Indus, which is in some sense the main focus of our lab. And Dr. Subramanian is the authority on the various databases on the Indus symbols, on the Indus sequences. So, databases is where we start from. If you want to decipher anything, first we have to have as comprehensive a database as possible. And ever since the discovery of the civilization, or the report of the discovery of the civilization just 100 years back, 1924, people have actually tried to build a comprehensive database of this inscription. So the first, I think, was done by Hunter, if I'm correct. Yeah, yes. Which Subbu is going to briefly describe. But the pursuit for a more comprehensive database continues as more and more inscriptions continue to be found. And presumably we'll never quite have a completely, perfect database. Just, what is the best up till the date, right? So Subbu will give us a nice overview of, all these kinds of databases and concordances that have come up so far on Indus script and its research. So, Dr. Subbu.
Thanks, Sitabra. Good evening, everyone. Looking at what Nandini presented, I see this 100-year cycle. So now that we are 100 years from the date of discovery, or at least the announcement of the discovery of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, I'm hopeful something will soon happen in terms of deciphering the Indus script. I'm quickly going to go over the Indus script, concordances and their role in the Indus script analysis and where the current research lies. I'm sure you would have seen this in other presentations, this broad map of where all the Indus sites reside. They are mostly in what is called Sindh in current-day Pakistan, the West Punjab, and Baluchistan. That's basically where most of them lie. The Indus civilization had its beginnings from 7000 BC onwards. But what we really call as Indus civilization happened during the mature Harappan phase, which is 2500 to 1900 BCE. The civilization collapsed soon after 1900 BCE, and there was a bit of what's called post-urban Harappan phase or later Harappan phase that lasted for about 700, 800 years, depending on where you are looking at. Again, I'm focusing on the inscribed objects. In places like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, a lot of artifacts were found. The ones of most interest are the seals and seal impressions. There were also tablets, terracotta tablets, and this pottery with seal impressions, and most importantly, copper tablets and copper tools. The sad thing with these copper tools is they have degraded beyond the description because you cannot see what is on them. So, for the most part, these copper objects, you have to rely on what has been documented so far. The Indus script is generally written from right to left. There are some exceptions where you see them being written from left to right and also in a boustrophedon form. Why is Indus script not deciphered yet, although it has been more than 100 years since we started to talk about them? Bilingual scripts are missing. For example, in case of Egyptian hieroglyphs, you had Rosetta Stone. And in Indus script, we have very short texts. The average text is about 5 characters, 5 signs or less in length. And the number of texts available so far is relatively few, about 4,000. and we don't know for sure what the underlying language is. And this is Rosetta Stone with hieroglyphic, Demotic, and the ancient Greek, all describing the same. So this was used by Campbellian to, among others, to decipher the Egyptian hieroglyph. Similar thing happened with Akkadian, Elamite, and Old Persian on Mount Behishtan inscription. So it was easy to decipher the Sumerian script. A quick recap on Indus Valley civilization's discovery. In the mid-1800s, the great game was on. Funny how things haven't changed since. It's the same characters, Afghanistan, Russia, Great Britain, all in the mix. One George Mason, who is widely believed to be a army deserter by some and an American spy, was scouting around this area, who happened to visit Harappa and document what he found. Subsequently, Punjab was annexed and the British rule of India started. Under ASI, there was a lot of research going on into identifying all the Buddhist monuments in the western Punjab and what is now called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Also, they were interested in knowing where all Alexander the Great went when he was in India. When John Marshall started heading Archaeological Survey of India, two people under him, Rakuldas Banerjee and Dayaram Sahni, headed efforts in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. And when their findings were brought to John Marshall's attention, he found them to be very similar, and that is when he decided to announce a great civilization. He called it Indus Valley Civilization, and this is how it was announced nearly 100 years back in September 1924. John Marshall published his findings in a monumental publication called Mohenjo-daro and Indus Civilization in 1931. This book contained a sign manual produced by Gadd and Smith. Gadd was with the British Museum and Smith was with the Babylonian project looking into artifacts from Iraq. So, again, going back to this book, this contained Langdon's hypothesis connecting Indus script to Brahmi. So the link to Brahmi started earnestly from this point. Okay, this is how Gadd and Smith's sign manual look. This is the very first ever manual of an Indus script. It contained a mix of unique signs and sign variants. Again, this was handwritten. Now, quickly, what is a corpus and what is a concordance? A corpus is a collection of data. For example, Shakespeare's entire work or his tragedies, we can call it the corpus. In the context of Indus script, corpus typically contains text from inscribed objects of various kinds, and they are organized in a consistent way. This becomes critical because objects form multiple sites. In case of tablets, you have objects written all over the site. So how do we read it in a consistent form and document it becomes a critical question. Concordance as a biblical root, it's an alphabetical index of principal works with reference to the passages in which that particular word occurs. In case of Indus script, concordance has a different meaning. So it is created for a particular sign to indicate in what text and in which position of a text that particular sign occurs. So in order to create a proper concordance, you need to have a defined sign list, including sign variants, rules for what to be included and excluded, how to handle when multi-side objects occur, and what is the best way to present the text, and including other information such as field symbols and duplicate texts. This has been a vexing problem, especially handling the duplicate texts. Hunter was involved in the initial excavation of Mohenjo-daro, and he used his data collection for his doctoral thesis. He published this collection as a book in 1934. This is based on the information he collected only from Mohenjo-daro. This list had 234 distinct signs, and he based it on the Gaddon-Smith sign list. There were about 750 objects he found in Mohenjo-daro. He also later grouped Harappa data in this. The good thing about Hunter was that he provided the source, such as the museum in which the object was located, and he provided drawings of all the inscribed objects. There was no photographic documentation. He did a lot of comparative studies, but his work was limited by the number of objects he had. So this is how the table structure of Hunter's concordance looked. On the right, extreme right column, you have the unique sign that he was tracking, and the letter R represents that particular sign. It's kind of confusing, but that is how he represented. R is, I guess, is stood for the reference. The row 247, for example, has two lines and an R followed by another colon kind of sign. This Hunter thinks only the R, that is the reference sign, is the proper sign, but this colon followed by fish sign followed by colon itself is a different sign, as it turns out.
So which side he decides to anchor it on?
That's, yeah, Hunter, but he used the Gaddon-Smith as the initial reference point. But this is his reference sign, and all the R's are follows that. Hunter also did similar looking signs into groups, which is again a very first thing. Some of them are different signs for it, but some of them can be sign variants. This is a different sign, this is a different sign, but he grouped them all together. Hunter was the first to analyze signs individually and identify sign variants. He studied the structure and formation of Indus signs and how compounding of signs occur. He was the first one to formally tabulate text by reference sign we saw earlier. Like that. So that the text can be aligned and presented. He did some statistical analysis and by which he established the direction of writing, primarily as from right to left. He speculated on the possible grammatical and textual meaning of signs. He was the first one to formally do segmentation of text. He also did contextual analysis. For example, he went through certain Indus seals found in the Middle East and found the text combination occurring in them to be very different from what he found in Mohenjo-daro. So he was of the impression that they were encoding a different form of text there. Again, finally, he did comparative linguistic studies between Indus script, Sumerian, Egyptian, and Sanskrit. In the 60s, saw Russians getting into the fray, and computer-aided analysis of Indus script became fashionable. Along with Soviets, I said Russians, and then it was Soviet. So, along with Soviet, yes, and very few people took Hunter's work seriously. No further work was done. Even, yes, it is surprising. And even here, nobody used Hunter's data, the book. It was republished by someone in Delhi, I think. Yeah. So, other than that, I was trying to locate his PhD thesis, but it became such a hard thing to do. It was not easily available, not freely available anyway. So, World War, partition, all those good stuff. But even in the 50s, I mean, up to 60s, until the mid-60s, when the Soviets started to publish, and in the 66 is when Mahadevan published his first comparison of Indus script and Dravidian links. Only after that, there was a lot of interest that picked up here. Very little is known about the Soviet analysis. They did not publish the kind of tools they used, kind of corpus they created, etc. But Soviets seem to have concluded that the structure of the Indian script is closest to the Dravidian language. The Finnish team announced in 1969 that they have successfully deciphered the Indus script. But it was a premature announcement, and there was a lot of criticism on that, so they quickly withdrew that. Mahadevan. After Hunter's work, Mahadevan's work was the most significant. I said late 60s. Actually, his paper was published in 1970 by drawing attention to the parallels between Dravidian languages and the Indus script. He initially created a photographic card catalog to aid his research effort. Anecdotally, he's probably the only person who seems to have physically looked at every object that was available in ASI Museum and also in Delhi Museum. So no one else that I know of has seen that. He says he couldn't visit Pakistan because he was an IAS officer at that time, so they wouldn't let him there. Otherwise, he would have jolly well walked into Lahore or wherever else these objects kept. So he created photographic card catalog, and he worked with the College of Engineering, Guindy, to create his first corpus in 1971, and it was refined later with the help of TIFR. And finally, the new and improved version of his complete concordance was published in 1977. It has not been updated since. So, to publish this concordance, he created his own typeset of Indus signs. I'll show you Okay, like before that. There are about 250 signs in Hunter's concordance, and now they have in Mahadevan's work. There were 419, although inexplicably only 417 were used in his analysis. Now there are 2,900 or so objects obtained from 26 different sites. Mahadevan presented his corpus separately and also his concordance. So, two different sections in his book. He performed extensive textual and statistical analysis, and the summary data was also presented in multiple tables within that book. It's a tome, about this thick. So, I believe it is still available in ASI. If you know the right person to contact. So, on your left, you see the sign list of Mahadevan. He had an order of presenting this. Humans first, and animals, and that kind of a thing. Lion objects next, and so forth. I mean, I remember him saying that he followed a particular standard. I don't recall which standard he was using to represent signs in a particular sequence. Anthropomorphic figures first, and then animals, and next, and then line objects, and so forth. On your right, you will see the sign variants that he had noted. So, these three he had categorized as sign number 1. That's how it goes. So, again, on the left side, you see the corpus created by Mahadevan. This is an indication of unclear sign. So he was not able to read it properly, or it was damaged or destroyed, that section of the text. So this is the Mohenjo-daro, a sample of Mohenjo-daro text presented in a corpus form, and this is his concordance. For example, like Hunter, he chose a reference sign. So he simply made R as the column, and he aligned everything along that. So things shifted to the left or the right, so that all texts are aligned according to that particular reference sign. So some of the highlights of Mahadevan's concordance. The first comprehensive corpus and concordance with analytical tables. Thorough research went into its preparation. Easy availability and accessibility at that time. It was institutionalized. The whole thing was owned by ASI, which still owns it. Fortunately for him, his work spawned several research papers, several from Mahadevan himself and from others. Professor Gift Ceremony is a statistical professor. He did a lot of Madras Christian College. He has done a lot of statistical analysis based on Mahadevan's concordance. Recently, Roja Muttaya Library, where he has gifted many of his works, has created a web-enabled interface so that anyone can access the Mahadevan database. So that is what it is. Corpora is a close associate. He came to India to do research on, I think, religion, of all things. But he got interested in Indus script, and he worked with another Finnish gentleman, Seppo Koskenniemi, and they created what's called a pairs concordance. That is, instead of individual signs, they took pairs of signs and started to create a concordance work. Even they lost interest in such analysis, so they dropped it. They created a corpus and concordance between 79 and 82, and it has not been updated since. But what made Corpora's contribution great was his creation of CISI. That is, it says 3 volume. Now it has been, 5 volume. Corpus of Indus scripts and inscription. The first one was from India, the second one from Pakistan, third one mostly from the HARP project, which was conducted in the late 90s. HARP is Harappa Archaeological Research Project. And the fourth and fifth are from nearby archaeological sites such as Shari-Shokta in Iran, eastern Iran, Mehergarh, Navsharao, and so forth. And now there is a latest volume on Indo-Iranian borderlands. This is how they look. I'm most familiar with the top 3, so I haven't seen the last 2. So this is Corpora's pair concordance and sign list. See, unlike this is a sign list, and he used the pairs here. If you look at it, he will see 2 signs, the double quote and the fish sign here. He used that as an analysis. So this did not last long. Okay, this is his concordance sign list. It looks very similar to Mahadevan's, although unlike Mahadevan, he incorporated the sign variants within the sign list itself. So this is Corpora's 7982 concordance. Again, this is the reference sign, and he tried to align all the reference sign down. Where you see a discrepancy, this is a multi-line text, for example. So otherwise the text aligned properly. This is Corpora's singular contribution to Indus script research. With the aid of UNESCO, he brought some photographers from Finland and started with the help of and blessing of ASI in India and the Pakistan's archaeological department. He started to photograph all Indus objects. So the CISI is the outcome of all those efforts. The best thing is, as I pointed out earlier, the copper objects are deteriorating really fast. So if you go and take a look at them, probably you will see copper powder there, the kind of a situation. So this is the best evidence of what we have unearthed so far. So in that sense, he has made a phenomenal contribution. I know he worked closely with Mahadevan because for some of the objects, ASI did not have the proper reference, so he used Mahadevan's card catalog to properly link them. So, okay, just pointed out. And this is the obverse, this is the reverse. That is, if the obverse has engraved signs, he made a picture of them. So if you put it on stamp it on a clay soil, this is the impression you'll get. So original, you will read from right to left. Original you will read from left to right. This is the actual thing you will read from right to left. Sorry. Corpora was and still one of the early pioneers of use of computers. His early concordance was comprehensive but not widely published. But strange thing is, at least one researcher used his concordance to prove that Indus script was written from left to right. So, and it was Dravidian. So, people have, although it was not widely published, people have used this. His photography, Corpora, is his singular contribution to the field of Indus script research. Corpora has performed his own analysis, and he has written several papers, and more importantly, he has published a book in which he goes extensively into Indus script analysis. Especially, I like his grid analysis. I don't think many people have followed on that. Grid analysis and pattern analysis. To some extent, Brian Wells has done, we will come to Brian Wells in a moment, has done pattern analysis, but not much has been done on grid analysis. I think this is an area we should probably focus on. Brian Wells. Brian Wells is the latest, the last one I'm going to talk about today. He got interested in Indus script during his master's and did his master's thesis on Indus script. He proceeded to do his PhD dissertation also on Indus script. So out of all this came an expanded sign list and a more elaborate classification of objects. For example, Mahadevan would classify something as just seal, whereas Brian will go ahead and describe 10 different types of seals that he found. Very nice, but analyzing that many classification poses its own challenges anyway. So Wells also included hot data in his database. He is being helped by another researcher from Germany. His name is Andreas Fulz. Andreas now manages the web-enabled database of Brian Wells. They have added several dynamic analysis features, and they display the form in tabular form and not in a concordance form. This is the sign list of Brian Wells. He has taken a different view. Mahadevan and Corpora started with human anthropomorphic signs. Brian starts with the numeric signs and so forth. So he has about 677 signs. There is a big difference between Mahadevan, Corpora on the one hand and Brian Wells. Mirror images, for example, Brian treats them as separate signs, so which is an area of contention. So this is how the Brian Wells corpus looks. If you haven't seen it, you should go and look at it. It's very nice. It's very friendly. So I think access is available to anyone who asks for it. So Wells corpus is the most comprehensive Indus script corpus that is available. It's web-enabled and freely available to all scholars. So it's the first corpus to be created primarily from photographic images of objects rather than directly from the objects themselves. This is where he differs from Mahadevan and Corpora. He's an archaeologist and he has done some digging, but he has never seen many of the Indus objects, inscribed objects anyway.
For the Pakistan volume of CISI, some of the seals for which are photographs, when you went to the museums, they claim that the seals are no longer there or the seals were never there.
Pakistan has one of the most stringent laws against theft of the archaeological artifacts. but I believe it's very easy to take objects away.
Yeah, I mean, one wonders whether the same thing would be true in Indian museums also.
We don't know. No one has done an audit. So this photographic corpus is the best hope we have. See, he has a different approach towards handling signs and sign variants. People may or may not agree with it, but at least it provides a variety from which you can choose. He has done extensive, he and others. Now many people are collaborating with Brian and Andreas Fils, so there is more research work going on. In that sense, it's contributing heavily to the Indus script analysis. But it needs to be institutionalized. It's presently managed by an individual. That in the long run is not a good thing. So how to institutionalize will be the question they have to answer. This is a long table, but let me summarize it this way. The Concordances and Corpora provided a comprehensive repository of Indus objects and a way of organizing them through a standard sign list and sign variant list. They all gave a statistical analysis of the data and made them available to scholars. This provided the stage for further research. It has also given us a significant understanding of how the Indus script works, how the regional variations occur, and what could be the possible language underlying the Indus script. More importantly, all this has given us potential areas for future research and potential languages or that we should be looking at for decipherment. Contextual analysis is an area that needs to be looked at as a future research area. And there is evidence that even the current Indus script, when you look at the frequency of occurrence of text, you see a certain pattern in Harappa that you don't see in Mohenjo-daro. So there is geographical variation. So, and one thing that has not been looked into very carefully is stratigraphy. That is, at what depth were things found. I don't know if I have it. I will try to show it to you. After the initial excavation, an American archaeologist did further excavations in Mohenjo-daro. His name was Mackay. Mackay did the most thorough archaeological dig at Mohenjo-daro. Before him, the mode of operation was archaeology by wheelbarrow. So they come, fill the wheelbarrow, send it through a sieve, and whatever surfaced will get identified as an object and saved. Whereas Mackay was the first one to go layer by layer, identify at what layer, in what position it was found, so that you know the context in which a particular inside object occurred. You also know, along with this object, if something else occurred, a mud pot, pottery, or another tool occurred. Even now, you can go to his report and find out exactly what happened, what room it occurred, and at what depth, and from the door, how far was it, and so forth. That kind of details are not available even in Lothal report. It simply says it occurred here, that kind of a thing. So stratigraphy is very important. I think these days it's being taken into consideration seriously, but it was not so in the past. Multidisciplinary research, I think, I know Sitabra is one person who is doing that kind of a thing. So a lot of that is happening. More textual analysis and creation of more analytical tools is the future area of research. It has been 100 years since discovery of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa was announced. but we are nowhere close to determining the underlying script of Indus Valley civilization. I know someone among you is going to be the discoverer of that script. So definitely not me, it's the next generation which needs to take the research forward. So in that, the lack of new talent to continue the research work is something we should be concerned about. Making the corpus and concordance up to date and make them available to everyone so that research can be conducted based on that, by which I mean institutionalizing the process. This is again going back to what Sitabra said, accessibility to original artifacts. Many of them are lost due to theft and deterioration, specifically in case of copper objects. 3D rendering of objects. I think now this is a lot of that is being talked about. Look at Corpora's photographs is one thing, but seeing it in a three-dimensional form will give more perspective to the researcher. Lack of physical access is a definite problem because from ASI's point of view, they don't want the objects to be destroyed. So we need to create a way of doing both. In this regard, the effort done by Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative, CDLI, is worthwhile emulating. What they have done is, for each object, they have given the 3D images. They have given what is written, this is the cuneiform script, and also the notes of the various people who did the research. It's a comprehensive rendering of a object. Such a thing is really needed for all Indus objects. Currently, there is a lot of excavation going on in the what's called the Ghaggar Hakra river basin. Ancient DNA-based research is also in full swing. This is mostly to identify the genealogy of the people who inhabited that land. And finally, computational linguistics, which is that's it for me. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have a comment on this one, that during the partition, Pakistan claimed half of the objects, Indus Valley objects, which are deposited in Delhi. Then I heard that all these are kept somewhere in a warehouse in Lahore for a long time, and we don't know what happened to them. There are many seals and many objects, artifacts, and so on.
In schools, when in high school, when you first read about Indus Valley civilization, I'm sure wherever you went to school, you would have seen a picture of a gold ornament that was discovered in Mohenjo-daro. In 1998, there was an exhibition in Asia Society, New York, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Pakistan's independence, where Pakistan had displayed all the objects they had acquired post-partition. That chain was half cut. This is how we partitioned. Okay. Apparently, they were fighting tooth and nail over each object, especially anything of precious value. I don't know about the seals. Some seals went to Pakistan. They were all listed in that green book. And that orange book of Corpora contains all the objects that were left with India. So the partition was painful even from this perspective.
No, but the more interesting point is that even after Corpora did the photograph, after that some items have gotten
You're
missing.
missing. Yeah.
That is the interesting point.
Yeah, even Corpora mentions that. He went back to see the objects and they were not there.
Sir, sorry, apologies, I made a mistake. What year were these photographs taken?
No. Corporas. The first book was published in 1987, that the India version. And the Pakistan was 92.
And since then, we have had no other photographs.
No, there is a third book, which is the HARP project, Harappa Archaeological Research Project. See, Corpora brought his own photographers, and both in India and Pakistan, the archaeological department insisted on using their own photographers. So Corpora said, I will hire them, but I will use my photographer to take the photographs. A lot of politics went on. So although the project started somewhat early, 85 or so, it took them a long time to wade through all these politics to get the photographs. I think ASI India has the one copy of the original negatives, and Corpora has the other copy.